The Babysitter's Curse. 17-year-old Emily Carter arrives at the Harrington's house, an elegant but eerily quiet home on the edge of town. The driveway is lined with towering oak trees, their bare branches scratching against the wind. She shivers slightly as she steps inside, the grand foyer dimly lit by an antique chandelier. The house has an unsettling stillness, like it's holding its breath. Emily is babysitting their 6-year-old daughter, Lily, for the evening while the parents attend a gala. Mrs. Harrington, a tall woman with sharp features, smiles as she gives last-minute instructions. "Lily's already asleep upstairs. Just make yourself comfortable." Mr. Harrington gives a polite nod before they disappear into the night. Emily wanders into the spacious living room, flicking on the television to drown out the silence. The faint hum of an old grandfather clock in the hallway ticks away the minutes. She pulls out her notebook to study, the pages rustling in the otherwise quiet house. Then the house phone rings. Startled, she glances at the digital clock on the kitchen stove. 9:23 p.m. Who would be calling the house phone? She hesitantly picks up the receiver. A deep, raspy voice whispers, "You shouldn't be here." Emily's grip tightens on the phone. Her immediate thought is Megan. Her best friend has a habit of playing tricks. "Haha, very funny, Megan," she says, forcing a chuckle before hanging up. Minutes pass. The wind rattles the window pane. Emily shakes off the unease and continues her homework. The phone rings again. This time, heavy breathing comes through the line before the same voice murmurs, "I'm watching you." A chill prickles her skin. The voice isn't Megan's. It's too deep, too real. Emily quickly locks all the doors and checks the windows. Everything is shut tight. She grabs her phone and texts Megan. "Not funny. Stop it." Megan replies almost instantly. "What are you talking about?" Emily's stomach twists. Before she can process Megan's denial, the house phone rings again. Her hand trembles as she checks the caller ID. The number isn't from outside. It's coming from inside the house. Emily's heart pounds. She dials 911, her fingers trembling. But before she can explain, the line goes dead. A sharp beep follows, then silence. Her breath catches in her throat as she stares at the lifeless phone. Had the call been cut intentionally? Determined to prove it's just a mistake, she grabs a kitchen knife and searches the house. She checks the basement first, flipping on the dim overhead light. Shadows stretch along the concrete walls. The old furnace groans and a stack of dusty boxes teeters in the corner. She holds her breath, listening, really here. Next, she moves through the hallway closets, throwing them open. Coats sway slightly on their hangers. She shoves them aside, expecting... what? A man hiding? Her pulse hammers, but the closet is empty. She checks under the stairs, where the Harringtons keep storage bins and Christmas decorations. Nothing. Then she notices something odd. A second phone line is plugged into the wall in the attic. Emily's stomach knots. Had it always been there? She hesitates before pulling down the creaky attic ladder. Dust cascades from the ceiling as she climbs up, the wooden steps groaning under her weight. Pushing open the attic door, she coughs as the stale, musty air rushes toward her. The space is cold, far colder than the rest of the house. She sweeps her phone's flashlight across the attic. Old trunks, stacks of yellowed newspapers, and covered furniture loom like forgotten ghosts. But then, the phone rings. Emily whips around. In the farthest corner, an old rotary phone sits on an antique wooden table. Its cord dangles, swaying slightly, as if recently touched. The ringing doesn't stop. A chill runs down her spine as she steps closer. Her hand shakes as she picks up the receiver. A whisper hisses through the line. "Why did you come up here, Emily?" The voice is too close, too knowing. Her vision tunnels. She drops the phone and bolts down the attic ladder, nearly slipping in her panic. She slams the attic door shut, locking it. Her chest heaves as she presses her back against it. Then she remembers Lily is still asleep upstairs, and the attic door clicks behind her, as if someone just locked it from the other side. Rushing up to Lily's room, Emily finds her sound asleep, her small chest rising and falling in peaceful rhythm. Relief floods her, but it's short-lived. As she turns to leave, a floorboard creaks. Just outside the door, she freezes. The hallway beyond is pitch dark. She holds her breath, listening. Then, ever so faintly, the sound of bare feet padding across the wooden floor reaches her ears. Heart-hammering, she inches toward the door, pressing her ear against it. Breathing. Slow, deliberate breathing. Just outside. A shadow flickers under the gap between the door and the floorboards. Someone is right there. Panicked, she scoops Lily into her arms and locks them both inside the bedroom. Her fingers fumble with her phone. She tries to call 911, dead battery. She slams the phone down and listens. Silence. Then, tap, tap, tap. The slow, deliberate knock sends ice through her veins. Then, the doorknob turns. Emily's breath catches. She grips the nearest heavy object, a lamp from the nightstand, raising it above her head, ready to strike. The knob turns again, slowly, as if whoever is outside is toying with her. Then, a voice, soft, wrong, not the same one from before. "Emily, let me in." It's a child's voice. Her eyes dart to Lily, still nestled in her arms, her tiny hands curled in sleep. She isn't speaking. She isn't even awake. Emily's blood runs cold. Her grip on the lamp tightens. She stares at the door, willing it not to move. But the voice comes again, more insistent this time. "Emily, open the door, I want to play." A sudden thud shakes the door, then another, harder this time. Emily chokes back a sob. The door handle rattles violently. The lamp in her hand feels useless. Then everything goes silent. For a long moment, nothing happens. Then, just as she thinks it might be over, a giggle, small, airy, and chilling, whispers through the crack beneath the door. Emily screams. Hours pass. The house is silent again. Emily doesn't dare leave the room until she sees headlights outside. The Harringtons are home. She bursts downstairs, frantic, explaining what happened. Mrs. Harrington pales, clutching the edge of the kitchen counter. "You heard a child's voice?" she asks in a whisper, her voice barely audible. Emily nods, still shaken. Mr. Harrington's face darkens. He exchanges a glance with his wife before motioning Emily toward the living room. He stops in front of a large family portrait hanging over the fireplace. Emily recognizes Lily's bright smile, but then notices something she hadn't before. Lily isn't the only child in the picture. Lulu standing beside her, his small frame, identical eyes. But something about his expression sends a shiver down Emily's spine. "This is Michael," Mrs. Harrington murmurs, her voice thick with emotion. "Our son, he died in this house 5 years ago." Emily's breath catches in her throat. The room feels colder. But what about the phone calls, the man's voice? Emily stammers, gripping the arm of the couch to steady herself. Mr. Harrington exhales sharply. He runs a hand through his graying hair. "We disconnected the attic phone years ago," he says gravely. "It shouldn't be working." Emily sways slightly, a wave of nausea washing over her. Before she can respond, a soft voice breaks the silence. Lily, still half asleep, rubs her eyes and murmurs, "Michael says he doesn't want a babysitter." A cold gust of air sweeps through the room, flickering the overhead lights. The entire house seems to hold its breath. Emily grips the edge of the couch, her pulse thundering. Outside, the wind howls. And then, from somewhere upstairs, a door creaks open, on its own. Determined to leave, Emily gathers her things, her hands shaking as she shoves her phone into her pocket. She keeps glancing over her shoulder, the sensation of being watched crawling over her skin like static. As she heads for the door, the house phone rings one last time. The sharp sound sends a jolt through her. Mrs. Harrington, standing frozen in the foyer, slowly reaches for the receiver. She presses it to her ear, her expression tightening with each passing second. Then, as if drained of all color, she turns, her eyes wide and hollow. It's for Emily. Emily's breath catches. The last thing she wants to do is answer, but some unseen force compels her forward. Her fingers barely graze the receiver before a deep chill grips her spine. She picks up. The static-filled voice murmurs, its sound crawling into her ears like slithering shadows. "You should have left when you had the chance." The lights go out. Total darkness engulfs the house. The air thickens, pressing against Emily's chest. She hears Mrs. Harrington's sharp inhale, the scrape of a chair against the floor. And then, a sound. A soft, slow giggling. It's Lily's voice, but wrong, distorted, stretched, as if something else is speaking through her. The sound rises and falls, warping in pitch, echoing from the very walls of the house. Now it's too late. The giggling turns into a whispering chorus, voices overlapping, some high, some impossibly low. The walls tremble, the temperature plummets. Emily stumbles backward, her hand fumbling for the doorknob. It won't turn. The door won't open. Something moves in the darkness. A shape. Too tall to be Lily, too thin to be human, shifts near the staircase. Emily's breath comes in ragged gasps. The phone disconnects with a sharp click, but the voices remain. And then from the second floor, heavy footsteps, rushing, coming straight for them.